Fantastic. All right, let's get started. Hi, everyone. Bonsoir. Bienvenue à VERSeFest. Welcome to VERSeFest 2021, day 3 of this year's festival, our online and some in-person edition, and this evening's Plan 99 reading series event. Normally, we would be holding it in the wonderful Manx Pub bar. I was tempted to line the bookshelves with some bottles of scotch, but we'll just stick with the books. Thank you all for coming. This is going to be a wonderful event with 4 unique and exceptional voices in Canadian poetry. VERSeFest is located, the festival itself is located in Ottawa, Ontario, Canada, the traditional unceded territory of the Algonquin Anishinaabe peoples. My name is David O'Mara, and I will be your co-host for this event. And without further ado, I would like to pass the mic on to Eric Charlebois, my co-host. Eric, take it away.
Thank you, David. Merci beaucoup, David. Donc, bonsoir tout le monde. Hey, good evening. Donc oui, on a une superbe brochette ce soir. Donc, VERSeFest 2021 en ce superbe jeudi soir. Let's get going, David. What do you think? Let's rock.
Absolutely.
All right. So our first guest poet tonight, Donna Kane. She lives in Rolla, British Columbia. Her poems, short fiction, reviews, and essays have been published widely. She's the author of a nonfiction book, Summer of the Horse, and of 3 books of poetry, Somewhere Afire and Erratic, both finalists for the Relit Award, and most recently, Ori, finalist for the 2020 Governor General's Literary Award. Poems from Ori were also featured in A Sky Full of Poems with Dava Sobel, presented by Hampton's Observatory and Guildhall in Voyages to Mars, Dreaming, a podcast from the Smithsonian National Air and Space Museum. And a poem from the collection was selected for Vancouver's 2021 Poetry in Transit program. In 2020, Donna received the British Columbia Medal of Good Citizenship for her exceptional dedication to discover community potential and empower ownership through arts and culture. Donna, take it away.
Thank you so much, Eric. And I'd just like to begin by saying I'm actually reading tonight from Chibuktuk, also known as Halifax, on the unceded territory of the Mi'kmaq people. I also want to thank all the organizers and the host tonight, because I have a bit of experience in organizing events, and so I have some idea of how much time goes into it to make this possible. So huge gratitude for that. Thought what I'd do is I just do a bit of a intro to the book, Orrery. It was published last year. Just sort of the ideas that arose, the concerns of the book, and then I'll read a few poems. In 2003, I read an article that said that NASA was shutting off their computer and would no longer be communicating with Pioneer 10, which is a space probe that was launched in 1972. And it was originally meant to last, a couple of years, get as far as Jupiter, study the moons, and that would be it. But it exceeded everyone's expectations through a gravity assisted, launched itself out of the solar system, and it is now in interstellar space. And many scientists believe that it's on a trajectory that may still be coasting through space once the sun has consumed our Earth. But in 2003, there was no more communication with it. And the reasons for that were a few. One, it was in a place in space where there wasn't really a lot of valuable information for the scientists anymore. And the battery on the probe was getting quite weak, so the signals weren't very strong. And computers are moving from analog to digital. So the computer used to communicate with Pioneer 10 was pretty much obsolete. So it really captured my imagination on all kinds of levels, this human-made object that may outlast the Earth, the way in which we do abandon things when they're no longer of perceived value to us. And it raised ideas for me around materiality. When the probe left the Earth, it basically went from a tangible object to intangible, so concrete to abstract. So yeah, it just caused a lot of exciting thoughts, I guess, that I have been researching, and it took a long time, but here it is. So I'm going to read the first few poems are related specifically to the subject of Pioneer 10, and then the last two poems will be more around the ideas that arose from my research. The first poem is an imagined letter from NASA to the probe on the day that they shut off the computer. Dear Pioneer 10, further to our meeting, we confirm we do not plan to contact you again. As stated, after 12 billion kilometers and 30 years, you are not so much old as beyond our jurisdiction. As well, the original contract was 21 months. You've exceeded that. While we commend you on your work ethic, enough is enough. You are the first human-built object to pass through the asteroid belt. That's something to be proud of, no? We realize you are in deep space, and the next star in your trajectory is a 2 million year journey, but we feel the loneliness is ours. As they say, to be is to be perceived. Listen, you knew what this was. There are rabbit ears in my basement with the same complaint as you. Your silence isn't keeping us up. The nearest exit may be behind you. Its shadow's been gone since liftoff, but it took light disappearing before lonely seemed simply alone. Or if not alone, then deep in the lab of the not understood, the no human scent in its gold dust, the no soot darkened brows incandescent with plutonium. Shed of silver, quick, small, our ideas burning off like surplus fuel. Pioneer 10 is a thought clicked shut. Limbs drawn in, it drops like a tick from the brain's limbic core, like a photon traveling who knows how long before it reaches a body, the way the mind needs an object, something to crack open on, and by its reflection, shine. When they sent the probe into space, it had 11 scientific instruments on it, but it also had a plaque, and it was designed by Carl Sagan, and the pictures were drawn by his wife, Linda. The idea being that perhaps one day the probe would encounter intelligent life as we define it, and I don't know, guess come visit us or something. And it had a hydrogen symbol. It had our sun in relationship to the galaxy. It had the solar system on it. And it also had a depiction of a man and a woman. And they were naked so that, you know, the representation would be fairly clear. And when they assessed it before they put it on the probe, people had no problem with the man showing his penis, but they had a big problem with the woman having a vagina. So they had to go back and revise the plaque so that there would not be a vagina on the woman, and so that people would be reassured that they weren't sending pornography into space. And this poem is about that. Depiction of a man and a woman on the Pioneer 10 space probe plaque. If a representation of a man with a penis and a woman without a vagina is hurtling at 20 clicks a second away from Earth and makes contact with an alien who thinks just as we do. So admires the woman's hairdo, but gets the method of procreation wrong. Well, it won't be by accident, will it? The man, I must say, is anatomically lovely, and I like how his raised hand illustrates the opposable thumb while doubling as a sign of goodwill. But would it have killed us to add a short line for her cleft, to make her an artifact, not space junk, mound of Venus with a Brazilian wax job instead of Barbie made by Mattel? They say Greek statuary omits it, but come on, we talk about being safe and spend our days splitting the atom. In the time it takes me to write Snatch, the impression's a further 300 miles away. The chances of correction are nil. When the earth's fried to a crisp, the plaque will carry on. Ambassador of the easily offended, the quickly aroused. It hopes you will understand. And the last two poems are concerned more about the ideas, not the prose itself. And this one is called Obad. I wake, a pocket picked, my soul loose change, buying rounds in some nebular saloon. An emptied shell, I wait to be filled, air to a windsock, wait to be told who I am. Donna, you have class today. Yesterday it rained and your socks got wet. My soul comes back, not as a mother whispering there, but as something returning, tail up to its lair. And the last poem is called Autumn. This morning, dozens of grosbeaks descended on the garden, bunting the marigolds, the trailing licorice, pecking the seed pods of the nasturtiums. I saw how the tilting earth had exceeded my deadheading, and I wanted more than ever to remain in the world. It came as a terrible fear. Ravenous, the birds dove in and out of the bushes and shrubs, their feathers blurring as they gathered fruit, reminding me of a pillow fight when I was a kid, how the rules were laid out. No holding, no smothering. The blows made me gasp when the soft weaponry of the pillow exploded. Feathers fell in my hair and mouth. If I ever get so I don't know my name, my father would say, put a pillow over my head. I told my mother, if ever there was a time, the two of us staring at my father in extended care, sleeping but breathing hard. My mother reaching for the flowered cushion on my father's assist recliner, turning it over in her hands, then cuffing me gently with it. I grew up imagining that if things got bad, there would be no struggle, a gentle press and a swift end, gratitude rising from the body. Dear God, don't ever let me want to live at any cost. The thought rose like the soul of the dead, the birds filling the branches of the weeping birch, shaking down their tissue of seeds, hundreds of them falling. Thanks for listening.
Wonderful. Thank you, Donna. That was beautiful. Wonderful reading. I'm going to introduce our second reader for the evening, Michael Pryor from BC. He has published all over the place, including places in the UK and States, Poetry, the New Republic, Sewanee Review, the PN Review, Ambit, as well as the Academy of American Poets Poem of the Day series. He's also received fellowships from the New York Public Library's Cullman Center, the Jerome Foundation, and the Hawthornden Literary Retreat in Scotland. Since his debut collection, Model Disciple, Michael's work continues to astonish through its deep empathy, memorable imagery, beautifully measured lines, and formal dexterity. Born out in his most recent book of poems, Burning Province, which came out last year with McClellan and Stewart, and was the winner of both the Canada-Japan Literary Award and the Dorothy Livesey Poetry Prize. So please welcome Michael Pryor.
Thank you so much, David, for that really wonderful introduction. And thank you to everyone at VERSeFest for putting this together. And thank you to other readers. This is really exciting. I'm going to read 4 poems from Burning Province. I'm going to start with the first poem in the book. And the book focuses a lot on the dispossession and displacement of Japanese Canadians during the Second World War. My maternal grandparents were forced into a camp in the interior of British Columbia. And this first poem is an ekphrastic poem. It responds to a series of images by the Japanese Canadian artist Keiichi Sumura. And I highly encourage you to check out her suitcase project. And what she did was she went up and down the west coast of Canada and America and asked 4th and 5th generation Japanese Canadians and Japanese Americans what they would bring if they were going to the camps. And then she photographed what they packed. So this poem is called 150 Pounds, and it starts with an epigraph from the BC Security Commission, who organized the internment. Each adult will be allowed 150 pounds, and each child will be allowed 75 pounds of baggage. BC Security Commission, 1942. In some, the luggage lies open like a mouth mid-sentence. In others, closed zippers grimace. What would you have brought? Slippers, a stuffed platypus, a gold watch on a chain, copper pot swaddled in bedding. The hypotheses that thinking can be things, that each decision shrinks the pained mind to the space inside a suitcase. Include lacquered chopsticks, silver forks, a hammer scarred by rust, the orders nailed to telephone poles and doors. Omit what you whispered then, most of what you've seen. I was given 48 hours notice, 24. I passed ice and pines and plains. I rode an iron serpent into the interior beside 400 others. It was humid. It was cold. If pain is remembered to be dismissed, if fear still seeds its rotting forest, this is a gardener's trowel, a blue skein of yarn, a violin, a ukulele, a ukulele, a ukulele. This is a porch light flicked on and off an abscess night. These are pear blossoms falling on the driveway like footprints in black ice. Memories, river stones metamorphic and worn. How many might an able-bodied individual carry through livestock stalls and mud, onto a bus, a train, into a tiny, uninsulated shack? Most say the same. It could happen again. It is happening now. I couldn't make room for a dogless collar, a houndstooth scarf, a steel urn packed in styrofoam, a letter recording blood's divisive fractions. My father would not have come, my mother, my stepsister, my brother. What matters is not what you bring, but what you keep. She was there. He was too. This next poem's about my mother. I haven't seen my mother in, 2 years now because of the pandemic. Closed borders and immunocompromised family members. And so this poem's for her, and it's a palinode, which is a poem that retracts a sentiment from a previous poem. Palinode. My mother is stalking cabbage moths with a tennis racket. She looks most like herself when she tenses and swings over rows of kale and romaine at the white specks floating through blue shadows. She is bisected by the swaying frame, distanced by the poor resolution of the video my sister just sent. Her left hand is bandaged. Tendinitis from picking caterpillars and eggs off the leaves with chopsticks. As if to prove obsession is its own lineage, I have spent hours checking the sun-stunted shiso for iridescent beetles, bodies tufted with fine hairs like the down on a dandelion seed. Spent years wondering what it meant to be her or her parents, uprooted, dispossessed. I can see so clearly time's possession in the way I speak, like her, the preference for detail, for impossible control, how my skin has pocked and wrinkled, the first gray hairs seeding my temples. I'm thinking of the time she was enrolled in an ESL class, even though she only spoke English. The time she told me on the phone that because I had left, I couldn't come back. The time I stole $20 from the jar under her bed, or all the times she corrected my pronunciation. Repeat, indistinguishable, inconsolable, inevitable, that I won't return home for another year. By then, she will have stopped dyeing her hair. There are no equivalencies, only echoes. I am alone and watching my mother watching something above her head. My mother is swinging and missing. My mother is crying for her mother. My mother is referring to herself as Oriental, as old. The cabbage moths arrived on the coast in the late 19th century, just before our family. Now these shimmering beetles are weighing down the leaves. When I look back, my mother has become indistinguishable from the shadows under the trees. I'm just going to read two more poems. One's slightly longer and one's pretty short. When I started writing Burning Province, my grandmother fell ill and passed away, my Japanese grandmother. And she had raised me when I was very young and we were very close. And so this is an elegy for her. And it takes its title from a poem by James Merrill. In Cloud Country. In Cloud Country, water has but two states. We feel the crease between a wave and its cold, between us and the sun. In Cloud Country, your mind settles its mist across the TV's broken screen, the IV's taped labels, the metal rungs strung along the bed frame like ladders into a hidden room. Here, Kyushu is a doorway left ajar, a nightlight shadow shift. Here, we admit ourselves the paper's ninth and impossible fold, the way we say hello, meaning hold on a little longer, or I don't know, meaning it's true. Errant cells spill like sea salt over the corridor's mirrored linoleum as we shuffle from floor to floor, and you live long enough to see your glasses return to style, your plaid shirts, your knit cardigans. Within our borders, your hair frays cirrus into sky, while that bride, so serious in every photo, never had to be you. Drowsy, draining through a plastic tube, in Cloud Country, you say, that was all so long ago. Each closet a mossy gate, each wormwood cabinet a cabin dissolving in your nowhere backwoods, where the plural is story, the singular skin, and the notice stapled to the door does not make of one face many. Was there ever a quiet street, a pink bungalow, a trio of hunched maples, a cup of cooling sencha waiting in this nation for you? In Cloud Country, you say, it feels like I'm being eaten, and choke down spoonfuls of ice cream, lemon jello. We thicken your water with powdered bone. In Cloud Country, the horizon doesn't sever the sky, but spills upwards, a helix of white smoke, burnt leaves, while the fledglings in our chest bear no desire to leave the nest or rot to barbed wire. At this latitude, the textbooks declare the heart an uncracked robin's egg, the mind a clever mockingbird's, and every morning is the morning you showed us the bitterns, curtained by bulrushes, towering in their sleep. You closed our eyes as we passed the one broken on the boulevard. It is here that you promised to reveal how to uncrimp each beak from its paper bud, how to unfurl each wing with the perfect pressure of fingers not yet talons, veins not yet tunnels of wind and sleet. It is here that you mutter, I had a name, so that we understand every animal has wings. No dignity and indignity, you kept it all to yourself in cloud country, where the sheets folded you and the crinkled gown exposed you, where the swallows never stood still and never stood for want. We kept them to ourselves. We kept this for you. You plead, leave a window open, a skylight unlocked. We flatten our faces against the glass's double pane. We couldn't finish those final folds alone. You left us for an image of astounding order. There was no order. We listened to the radio for your whereabouts until we too bear throats racked by static, blistered with Coriolis. The fields that stretch behind the boulevard rise and evaporate easy from their bedrock, now no different than bed. In cloud country, it rains newspaper cranes. It cries Fujita scale. It hears your tectonic mumble merge with ours. There is no scale for now and then. You are the paper's 103rd fold, the nebula's gauzed edge. In cloud country, you say, thank you. We say, thank you. So the last poem I'm going to read is the last poem in the book. And it begins with an epigraph from the medieval Japanese monk Kenko. And it's a love poem, but in a sort of roundabout way. And so here's the epigraph. You should never put the new antlers of a deer to your nose and smell them. They have little insects that crawl into the nose and devour the brain. Wakeful things. Consider that the insects might be metaphor, that the antler's wet velvet scent might be Proust Madeleine dipped into a cup of tea adorned with centrifugal patterns of azalea and willow, those fleshing the hill behind this room, walls wreathed in smoke and iron, musk of the deer head above the mantle. He was nailed in place before I was me. Through the floorboards, a caterpillar, stripped from its chrysalis by red ants, wakes as if to a house of flame. Silk frays like silver horns, like thoughts branching from a brain. After the MRI, my father's chosen father squinted at the wormholes raveling the screen and said, be good to one another. Love, how inelegantly we leave, how insistent we are to return in one form or another. I wish all of this and none of it for us. More sun, more tempest, more fear and fearlessness, more of that which is tempered, carved, and worn, creased into overlapping planes. The way I feel the world's aperture enlarge in each morning's patchwork blur of light and color, while I fumble for my glasses beside the bed, lenses smudged by both our hands. When they were alive, those antlers held up the sky. Now what do they hold? Thank you.
Michael, thank you so much. Magnificent, Michael. Breathtaking. Like the down on a dandelion seed. Are you kidding me? There are no equivalencies, only echoes. Thank you so much. Our next guest poet, notre prochain invité, Michaël Trahan. Michaël est né en 1984, il est tout jeune, Michaël, a grandi à Actonville, en Montérégie, avant de s'établir à Montréal au début des années 2000. Il est professeur de littérature à l'Université Laval et vit maintenant à Québec. Au Cartanier, il a fait paraître Vie nouvelle en 2020, La raison des fleurs en 2017, d'ailleurs lauréat au prix littéraire du gouverneur général catégorie poésie. Et Nœud coulant en 2013, lauréat du prix Émile Nelligan, du prix du Festival de la poésie de Montréal et du prix Alain Grandbois de l'Académie des lettres du Québec. Il est aussi l'auteur d'un essai sur la réception de l'œuvre de Sade, La postérité du scandale, publié chez Nota Bene en 2017, et d'une thèse de doctorat sur la question de la lisibilité dans le champ poétique français contemporain. Il est directeur littéraire de la revue Estuaire. Michaël Trahan.
Bonsoir tout le monde. Good evening. Merci, merci Eric pour l'introduction. Merci pour l'organisation. It is a bit strange to be the only one reading in French, but here we go. Je vais vous lire un extrait de mon dernier livre qui s'intitule Vie nouvelle. En vie nouvelle, qu'est-ce que c'est? C'est la vita nova. Hein? C'est un motif que je reprends de chez Dante, de chez Roland Barthes. Et qu'est-ce que c'est la vita nova? Vous savez, parfois, il y a des événements qui surviennent dans une vie et qui donnent l'impression de séparer la vie en deux. Hein? Il y a un avant et il y a un après. Et donc, après de tels événements, on a l'impression qu'on s'engage dans une autre partie de notre vie, qu'il y a quelque chose qui commence, quelque chose qu'on choisit. Et donc, c'est un peu ce que raconte Vie nouvelle. C'est un livre que j'aime bien présenter comme un livre d'éducation sentimentale. Et c'est un livre, donc, que j'ai écrit comme on choisit une vie. Et je vais vous lire ce soir le début d'un long poème. Au milieu de ce livre, il y a un poème de 999 vers qui s'intitule « Ouverture de la chambre sourde ». Et je vais vous lire le début de ce poème. Toutes ces années, les boîtes fermées, tenues scellées, j'ouvre les boîtes, j'ouvre les nuits, j'ouvre les jambes, j'ouvre la chambre sourde. Mes oreilles se fatiguent au moindre bruit. Je tiens le fil, l'étroit sortilège qui n'oublie rien, le geste et le refus du geste. L'ombre d'un acte joué, puis effacé, j'ouvre les boîtes, je ferme les boîtes. La vie est un fruit qui m'attend sur la table. J'entre, c'est le jour, je m'assois, c'est le jour, mais je ne bouge toujours pas. Je pense aux boîtes, la pensée me suffit. La pensée est une opération, la pensée est un mouvement, elle existe. Les lèvres existent. La pensée existe comme une boîte se ferme, sans dessein, sans intention, sans le projet d'être fermée pour une nuit, une heure, un siècle. Fermée depuis 1295, l'année de ma première vie. L'histoire connue, perdue. La voix de l'amour avant la mort, la voix de l'amour comme un rêve jeté entre deux pages. Un livre oublié, perdu, retrouvé, perdu et tenu à ses fantômes. À l'événement d'un sens inaccessible. Inaccessible, mais plus réel que 10 000 vies, 10 000 hommes, 10 000 femmes, 10 000 enfants, 10 000 millions de milliards de rêves, 10 boîtes. 10 boîtes ouvertes, remplies, fermées et fixées à la voix. Comme un cœur très lent, très beau et doux. Un cœur qui bat parfois, pas toujours, pas seulement. Car un ange est une pierre, est un ange. Et la cendre reste. Un doigt s'étire et la cendre remue. Rien ne brûle, mais le mot au mur est un jeune homme qui pleure la nuit, qui rêve de pleurer, qui s'installe à la table. Le fruit vieillit, le fruit de jour en jour s'élance, s'enterre dans les blés, puis revient. Toujours revient la chose malade et dit, je tiens aussi à la douleur. Je tiens peut-être à la douleur plus qu'à quoi? Demande la femme. Et le cinéma reprend juste là, chaque fois précisément à cette parole et aux lèvres tendues. Plus qu'à ma propre vie, répond l'homme, comme par réflexe. Mais c'est la même chose, les paroles jetées comme dans un film, pour dire quelque chose plutôt que rien. Mais à cet instant, les deux se lèvent, la porte s'ouvre, les deux sortent et s'assoient. Dehors, c'est la plus longue nuit d'un été déjà interminable. La phrase la plus idiote jamais prononcée. Et cette phrase, pourtant, attachée, aimée, adorée comme seule une pierre peut être adorée, chérie comme un roman d'amour, un rêve, une photographie en noir et blanc. La vie n'est pas la douleur n'est pas la vie. Elle ne peut pas être absolue, mais la boîte est instrument de tristesse, cadre complet, chose rigide, étrangère à tout mouvement, peut-être même à toute vie. Je dis, la boîte s'ouvre et je mens. J'écris le mensonge et j'essaie d'y croire. J'écris l'amour et je pense à disparaître. J'écris un jour, un homme se met à l'écoute du langage. J'ouvre un livre, c'est une boîte, tout est une boîte, tout se ferme sans jamais vraiment s'ouvrir. Et pendant ce temps, le fruit vieillit, mûrit, change de couleur avec les saisons, change de nom avec les siècles, les vies qui s'enchaînent, à toute vitesse se déroulent quand on ne bouge pas, quand on refuse de manger, quand on ne dort pas, quand jour après jour on se dit incapable d'aimer, incapable de vivre. Le sommeil s'éloigne, les rêves aussi. À la fin, les photographies sont comme un souvenir, non, une idée reçue, le miracle d'une pierre vraiment lancée au ciel. Un songe porté par le vent et parfois rendu à la terre. La chose humide, la chose fraîche, la chose de toute vie. Alors l'ombre s'éteint et l'ombre pense à la lumière. Et sur la table, le fruit s'endort. La chambre est toujours sourde, mais quelque chose a changé. Le problème de l'image n'est plus exactement le même. La boîte est posée sans raison, laissée là, non pas oubliée, mais vidée. Tout d'un coup, le secret qui sépare ceux qui partent de ceux qui restent à la pureté trouble d'une bille de fer. Lancée dans la salle, une petite pierre blanche trouvée au beau milieu de la rue. Une pierre offerte comme un mensonge, comme un oiseau, un fragment de lumière. Oublié dans l'herbe n'est pas une oreille, un cheval, un film monté en désordre. J'avance, l'image est de plus en plus mince, de moins en moins nette. La clarté est une invention bonne pour la neige. La neige est une jeune fille. La jeune fille est le bois sauvé. La rivière se meut entre la peau et l'image. Œuvre de dos, œuvre de force, le rêve, l'œuf, le retour de la danse. La peur qui est sans objet, qui est un ange, une chose trouée comme une légende. Un personnage maléfique, les ailes ouvertes, la main tenue à la feuille blanche qui est aussi gorgée de lait et de cendre. La nuit ramène ses bêtes et les figures s'éteignent. Dans l'eau qui vient avec la voix, je pense septembre, octobre, novembre, je pense saison morte, s'ouvre et reste, saison refuse, maison de paille, goudron, plume. L'un est nu, l'autre s'éloigne, l'obscurité avec miroir, je retiens fiction, scène froide, saison étrangère à toute couleur, saison bleue, famille rouge comme l'herbe, le film tout blanc comme une saison au bois. La forêt, les planches droites, solitude, repli, tête ouverte, tête détachée, saison noire, saison tenue à la vision malade qui meurt et revient à chaque heure son masque, à chaque masque sa vie. L'oiseau ramène ses lèvres vers moi, j'entends sa prière. Je ferme les yeux, sa voix me dit le désir d'une scène indésirable, indésirable et aimé pour cela. Je l'entends mal avec ses cheveux roses, le tiroir qui s'ouvre et se ferme. Je l'entends mieux quand il tombe, quand le fer soude les membres avec de l'eau. La boîte, sans titre, renferme un film italien, une histoire muette, une histoire bruyante, une histoire vidée de toute chance. Le vent, la veine, la vermine. Je remonte le sang, le rire, la honte, la grande mémoire de l'abandon, la mémoire du froid, de la nuit, de la faim qui s'arrête, qui veut s'arrêter, qui veut déclarer l'arrêt, qui a besoin de répéter l'arrêt définitif et irréversible pour rejouer jour après jour, nuit après nuit, la fin. Une ligne coupée, un nom brisé, un rideau qui tombe avec les mains. J'annonce la vie nouvelle, je fais comme si tout allait changer, comme si c'était la vérité, comme si l'enfant ne serait cette fois pas tout à fait sauvage, pas tout à fait abandonné. Le cœur fictif, l'ouvrage du peu d'amour, changé en soi, en chose brillante et souple et belle, et vivante, si vivante que la lumière tremble. Derrière son visage, la chambre s'ouvre. La vérité parle et je l'épouse, je lui donne tout pour qu'elle revienne. Les joies, les pierres, les pages trouées. J'ouvre la bouche, l'enfant s'avance au bord de la nuit. Le mur est droit, le sol plié. La porte est grande, j'y glisse un lac. La porte est douce, j'y pose ma tête, mon fils, ma fille. Le long ruban de toutes mes vies. Celles que je prends, celles que je donne, celles qui viennent avec la pluie, celles que je trouve au parc et que j'oublie là, celles que je vole parce que je les aime, et celles qui m'aiment comme un oiseau, une boîte percée. Merci.
Thank you, Michaël. Merci beaucoup. Wonderful. And now I'd like to introduce our final reader for the Planet 9 VERSeFest event, Sylvia Legris, whose latest poetry collection is called Garden Physic, which has just been published by New Directions, and I believe will appear with Granta Books next spring, 2022. Her other excellent books include The Hideous Hidden, Pneumatic Antiphonal, and Nerve Squall, which was the 2006 winner of both the Griffin Poetry Prize and the Pat Lothar Award. As with her earlier work, Garden Physic teases out meaning through the vital dynamic of sound and play, seeking nothing less than a reinvigoration of language. Hers is deeply animate work, not only because the subject is gardening, but because it testifies to how our human interaction with the natural world participates in creation through the vigorously verbal. In Sylvia's poetry, we are here to pay attention and to have fun too, as she unravels her own sense of playfulness, surprise, and paradox. Please welcome Sylvia Legris.
Can you hear me? Thank you for that introduction, David, and I hope we have fun. And thank you to the organizers of VERSeFest for inviting me, and Monty Reed, who initially contacted me last April. I'm thrilled to be here and with these other wonderful poets. So Garden Physic is brand new. I just launched it 2 nights ago. And I'm going to read a bit of a sustained piece, 7 parts from a 10-part poem. They're fairly short. The Garden Body, a Florilegium. 1. A pepper of bees opens the pupils. Chorus aphrodisia, mariner's root, bright sky and night star, heavenly, rainbow, amethyst, azure, blue, flower de luce, flowering ring. White arch angelic, the bee nettle, the dead nettle, a hide of nettle cloth, a finely nerved sedge. Take heed the edges, the pipes, the passages, the petal corridor, the corolla tube. A blossom is a throat, rose oil and hip. A ripped rose is a voice organ, time cut and curt, royally red and confidence keeping, redder than Mars, redder than hot days and parched Venus on the lips. 2. Muscle rose, flesh rose, then rustling red shank rose. Vines ascend the arch of aorta, mercurial, the climbing nightshade, the bundle branched bittersweet. White spotted hellebore under Jupiter and wind, oak lungs, jovial lungs. Sea rush blows the lungs with sweet rose, carmine and sanguine, flaming red. Candleberry fires the blood. Red is antispasmodic, cardiovascular, great garden patience of Mars. May blossom, hawthorn, spring gushes red-veined with sorrel, bloodwort below Jupiter, red dock for longevity. 3. Venus stokes the throatwort, the good leaf, the rose noble. L'herbe du siège slackens, the isthmus of the fauces, gash red and choking rose. Double tongue, bay laurel, Daphne of the sun. Yarrow charms wasps, snuffs the inveterate headache. Daphne sings the bees from the ears. The voice reeds are a Queen Anne's lace of wasps. Mercury abounds with buzz and wild carrot. Jumpstart speech with horse-strange words, a gargle of hogsfettle and brimstone wort. 4. Under Leo, composure, herb of grace, anti-magical, vinegar of the four thieves, poison against poison, rue before regret. Touch wood ruta sets the garden free. Lightning sulfur, the garden prone to primrose and paroxysm, pellitory of the wall quells old hacking and old cough, a new moon courtesy of wild clary, eye bright, clear eye on toute bonne foi. Sweep away the broom, the burdock, the beastly antipathy between ash tree and adder, snakeweed, dragon's blood, devil's bit, serpent's tongue, wickedness, a weak moon licked and licked and licked. Five. What a commotion. Wild rocket, a racket of wake robin, cuckoo point, the clear caroling rise and fall. Volatile dog's mercury, dog's grass, dog rose, hot fits and cold, metallic blue, the indecisive indigo. So the garden belly aches, so what? The grapes, rose rife with tormentil, gallant herb of the sun, 5 fingers, flesh and blood, stamina, life's long thread, root red, the unhindered heart. Leaves respire and rain returns blood-veined and blood dock, blood-colored juices, red poppy, a headache, heartichoke, the downhearted, loose strife calms the fugitive scarlet, sweet slumber, the fleshy rootstock. 6. Enlist imagination under the banner of science. Flora attired by the elements. Sea lavender, sea holly, sundrops, Jacob's ladder reaching ether, wind rose, sun rose, watergrass. The loves of the plants, the economy of vegetation, root, pith, lobes, plume, calyx, coral, sap. Air distributes the seeds of names, windflower, digitalis, tipsy, and ethereal. Trade winds, vital light, seeds within seeds. Start from the soil and win their airy way. The 50-seated heart's delight, saturnine and doting wild, heart's ease, herb constancy, ponce, an opening, call me to you, kiss her in the buttery, meet me in the entry. 7. The yard wants what the yard wants. Bloom of Ruth, breath of life, blush, charisma, compassion, imagination, ebb tide and nostalgia, ground cover and climbers, floribunda, abundance, a hybrid of bruise and steep, petal and drag, lungfuls of lamp flower, rose campion, rose of heaven. The moon shoulders rose root, rosy colored stone crop, the neck laced with French rose, common rose, pomander of roses. At the center of the garden, the heart, red as any rose, pulsing, balloon vine, love in a puff, heart seed, heart of the earth, a continuous flow of red. And I'm just going to read 3 very short poems from the last section of the book, which is called De Materia Medica, after Pedanius Dioscorides' first century, largely plant-based pharmacopoeia. Rhubarb. Great esculent garden, wisdom's sharp companion, patient rhubarb, wild rhubarb, beyond the Bosporus, beyond the pies lost in a triangle of midsummer scruples, ginger and spikenard, a dram of no misgivings, a drop of caution under Mars. Rue. A ring of rue around the neck, a chaplet of rue. Rue the tears of a weeping queen, fill a house with rue to kill the fleas. Rue of contradiction and incongruity, rue vehement and full of grace, rue broody and distilled, rue impassioned and brewed. Rue the rue that repeats itself, once more the vinegar of the aforesaid 4 thieves, the rue that dodged contagion, the rue that robbed with impunity. Sea lavender. On the lake lip, by the abdominal swamp, in the subcosmopolis bog, limnal leaves in tufts, marsh rosemary, wild marsh beet of red seed, ink root. For ancient ulcers, for current events and topical discharge, a drink of wine dark limonium and sea, a glass of sea thrift and wine. Thank you.
Thank you, Sylvia. That was wonderful, amazing. I love it.
Thank you.
And thank you to all our readers tonight. Of course, Sylvia, Donna, Michael, and Michaël. It was a wonderful evening. We nailed it. And thank you on behalf of my co-host, Eric, and the audience. It was a really fantastic event. I want to also thank Stephen Brockwell for the tech support tonight. So tell your friends, go out and buy those books. There are links provided on the VERSeFest website, or just harass your local independent bookstore to order in some copies. And Christmas is coming up, so time to get those books in hand. We have 3 wonderful days left of VERSeFest through the weekend, online, as well as a few in-person events. So tune in. Tomorrow night is Verse Across Canada at 7, and the VERSeFest International Poetry Slam at 9 o'clock. So check it out. All of these things can be found on the VERSeFest website, verseottawa.ca/VERSeFest, or just Google VERSeFest. Thanks again. Merci beaucoup. See you soon. Thanks all.